Hi, everybody. Welcome back. We are here for another one of your questions about work. And for those of you who are here for the first time, I'm Roy. I'm a startup investor in the future work. And we often ask questions that relate to the startup world. And Campbell is co-founder of Mantra, which is video creation for teams, and can tell us more about some of his experiences. So Campbell, thank you for being with us. And one of the questions people are asking now, and maybe it's a question people ask you as you try to hire them for your startup, is, it's a slow economy. Startups go out of business. Isn't it an unsafe time? And so why would I work for a startup in a slow economy?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Roy. I appreciate it. I think not everyone needs to work at a startup, but I think it definitely does come down to what are you optimizing for, right? What stage of your life are you in, and what are you trying to accomplish out of your work, right? And so Mantra is a relatively small team. We're around 8 people, very early stage. But being the founder, co-founder, and making a lot of the hires, one of the things we find when we talk to a lot of candidates, especially the ones who ended up becoming team members, we really have a good understanding as it pertains to what motivates them and why they want to join our team. And the things I hear a lot as a founder is just the idea that you really want to have an impact, right? That you really want to be in a position where you can help create something from nothing. You're not joining something that already exists. You're being part of something. You're part of something bigger than yourself, but you're also part of something bigger than yourself. And you have the opportunity to take real action in the short term that can kind of contribute to a long term, build something from scratch, long-term benefit. So I think that's definitely something that we hear with a lot of our team members. But the reality is, I think it very much depends on who you are and what you're optimizing for. And every team member at Mantra has different goals, right? And they, look at Mantra as a way to kind of accomplish those goals.
Sure.
But I think one of those kind of common goals is learning. And I think that's really, one of the reasons why joining a startup in a slow economy could be a good move.
Okay, but so hold on. So everybody's got different goals, but most people don't like to take a job just to be out of a job.
Yeah, for sure. But to that, I would say, look, big tech looked very safe a couple of years ago, but in 2023, there were over 160,000 layoffs. So how
Yeah, I
safe
think
is
that's
it?
right. And
Right.
then you made this point about interest rates. Say more about that. Because
Well,
connecting the macro economy to your job decision is not a thing that many people are in the habit of doing. So, how does inflation or a high interest rate change what job I might want to take? Unless I'm a mortgage broker, it's not necessarily obvious.
look, I think when capital is more scarce, you value it more, and the true colors of the founding team shine. And so in 2021, didn't take a genius to raise money. And I'm sure you saw this more than anyone. And in 2023, it still doesn't take a genius to raise money, but capital is far, it's less abundant for sure. And as a result, when times are great and everyone's partying, you don't learn anything. You only learn you only really learn when times are tough. And so when you're buckling down and runway's low and you need to be in a position to make payroll and you need to be in a position to acquire customers and ship something really quickly, those are the times when the true colors of the team really shine, and you are able to, I would say, learn as much as you possibly can. It's very difficult to, I would say, from my experience, learn and really understand why something's working when it's just working.
Yeah,
I think when you have to
I
fight
think
for
it's a
it,
good
it
point. I mean,
matters.
one thing I just say is I think that the market differences at the early stages are really exaggerated. Like, I think it's kind of the same as it was a year ago or 2 years ago. You still have plenty of firms. A lot of people talk about how different it is. And I'm not trying to say it's totally the same, but it's more the same than it is different. Very different for fast growth, post product market fit, later stage companies. And so, in the same way that you said it depends on the person, I'd submit it also depends on the startup. Because those are many of the cases where they really were able to take advantage of abundant capital, people piling in. But lots of great founders then and now stared at this, oh, anybody can raise money thing then, or nobody can raise money thing now, and had kind of the same experience of struggling in some cases, succeeding in others. We just had a startup have a great seed fundraising process, and it was like, wow, everybody's just shocked at how well it went. Great. It happens. And, they're not doing like, foundational AI models either. And so I think that the individual circumstances matter a lot. And that in a way, one thing we do, like, how many people are at Mantra?
Like 9.
Yeah. So you've got a handful of people.
Yep.
And working at Mantra is really different than working at pick another, late say that, a late stage, rapidly, that Stripe, you know,
Yeah,
a pre-public company.
Ramp. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And in some ways, those bigger companies look a little more like big tech.
Mm-hmm.
And in some ways, the smaller companies are all about, can they get product market fit and start growing and all that kind of stuff anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And I think your point about where you learn is such a good one. You know, one of the things I often tell people when we are talking to candidates considering to go to a startup in our portfolio is we tell them you should only go there if you think it will have been the right decision, even if the company fails. Because chances are they're going to fail. Chances are they're going to fail. And you know, nobody likes to think that about their company, but that's the truth. And as a VC, we have a whole portfolio of bets, but as talent, you only get to take one bet. And so when talent sits there thinking, I don't know, this startup is going to work, I think it might work, it's like, good luck outguessing people who have portfolios. But what you can do is say, this would be good for me regardless of whether it succeeds or fails. And the number one way that happens is learning. The number two way I think that happens is community, which is to say the caliber of people going to startups in a slow economy in some ways gets better because it's not as attractive to be in their next best alternatives. Like, startups in our portfolio are having a great time, if they can hire, trying to hire right now, or it's better than it was. I mean, nobody ever has a great time hiring because finding great people is always brutally hard.
I was going to say,
but something like that. All right, cool. Any other thoughts for folks?
You know, I mean, I think this comes down to the idea of like, what is a startup, which is a whole other question. And, you know, maybe that's a separate episode, but, you know, the experience of joining a team at, you know, 10 people versus 150 versus 500, all of which could be considered startups, is very different.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, I think that's exactly right. And I'm totally on the same page. And I'll just say, if you have other wisdom you want to share, you know, for folks who are watching us for the first time, the reason we say this is not advice is because neither Campbell nor I know what you should be doing with your life and your startup. We're only going to offer our perspectives. If you want to learn more about his company, it's here. And you know, to be continued. Thank you, Campbell. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Roy. Appreciate it.
Awesome.